ironic that this is the 40-year anniversary of Betsy. So as Dr. Maestri said, that this is going to be a big test all over the place. After this happens, we're going to find out what has to be done and how those levee systems did protect or not protect against this Category 5-4 hurricane.
You know, we're not going to know what has happened until it does happen, but the chances for it to be, as you said, the worst-case scenario are extremely grave at this time.
Are they extremely rare to happen?
No, grave. They're extremely grave at this time.
Yeah, we're looking at the situation here where we got several of the levee systems that are going to be tested here, and the winds and the flooding waters. We've already had flood warnings for a lot of the rivers across the area, so we have to deal with that with some of the river systems feeding into Lake Pontchartrain.
And Carl, if we can, let's go back to the wind damage that's going to be occurring, especially around the eye and the eye wall as it cuts through the New Orleans area. How wide of a path do you think that'll be?
I'm sorry, Eric. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Let's go over the center of the storm and its path across the New Orleans area. How wide of a path do you think that centralized destruction around the eye of this storm will be?
Well, last report at 10 o'clock, I think the eye wall was about 32 miles in diameter. So we're looking at least 35 miles, maybe 40, depending on how big the eye wall actually is. Because that diameter is measuring the inside of the eye wall to the other side of the eye. But you have to count the eye wall, so you can go another 5, 10 miles outside that diameter. So we're talking about 30, 40, 50-mile swath that's going to see the devastation of the eye wall come across the area. So we're talking about Upper Plaquemines, Orleans Parish, St. Bernard Parish, up towards southeastern St. Tammany Parish, part of Hancock County, up towards Washington Parish. So we're probably going to see at least a 40, 50-mile swath of major destruction around that eye wall as it travels north through the area. I'm kind of curious to see the track when it comes out at 4 o'clock to see if there's a shift in the track a little bit to the right.
All right, Carl, then let's go ahead and let you take a rest for a while and get some of your bearings and let you do a little research on this. And at 4 o'clock, I'd like to have you back on the phone, and let's go over the latest data when we get that at 4 a.m. this morning.
Okay, we'll try and look at it here, and then we'll try and give you a call back.
All right, please do. All right, Carl, take care and keep safe, you guys. All right, let's go back to Sally Ann and Bill.
All right, thank you very much, Eric and Carl, and some positive, some improving news for us.
We've got the latest information on the storm. A couple of things I want to tell you. First, the tornado watch for the metropolitan New Orleans area, basically across southeast Louisiana, has been extended until noon. Now, that's no surprise. There were 2 tornado warnings last night. The watch was to expire at 2 a.m. It's now been extended to noon. We expected that. Latest conditions in the city. This is 3 o'clock. Heavy rain at Lakefront Airport. The wind out of the northeast at 44 miles per hour sustained, but gusting to 56. And that's actually, the wind speed has dropped a little bit over the last hour because it was sustained 52. It was sustained in the 50s, and it was gusting into the mid 60s.
We do have Ben Lemoyne, Sally.
Okay, Ben Lemoyne.
Let's go to a package from Ben.
Guys, we're starting to see what we anticipated that we would be seeing out here. The rain is picking up, and you can see these definitive bands now. We've been driving throughout town tonight, and all of a sudden the wind will just start coming in very quickly. The rain will come through sideways, kind of what you expect to see in a hurricane. You can see right now behind me we have National Guard soldiers who have been activated. They are out here. They tell us what their job will be is tonight. If anyone needs any kind of assistance, they will go out and try to do that. And then tomorrow, of course, it will be going out and surveying the damage. By tomorrow, I mean later on this morning, of course. But as of now, the conditions basically as we expect out here. I'm kind of hidden. This is kind of, I know you guys can't see what's going on here, but we're in between 2 walls. If you step out into this wind, and I'm kind of limited by this mic cable here, there's definitely brush blowing by. Not the conditions we expect to see in about 6 to 8 hours, but certainly things picking up out here, looking a lot more like hurricane or near hurricane conditions.
And Ben, it's going to be a long night for everybody on the Gulf Coast and farther west here in the New Orleans area as well.
Say it again.
This is going to be a long night for everybody. How long? You guys going to ride it out on the beach all night and just wait for this to come?
Absolutely. It's going to be a very long night. You know, there are a lot of people who did wait it out. We talked to county officials earlier today, and as I said last night and earlier this morning, they had a big concern that people were not taking this seriously. I spoke to some people up until late tonight, 10, 11 o'clock, who said, look, we're just not going to leave. We're going to try to ride this thing out. They're probably up right now watching us on TV as we speak, and it's going to be a long night for them. They know this thing is going to come in. It's going to come in hard. We've been watching local forecasts right now showing that this thing could be moving a little more towards us, a little more easterly. Obviously, good news for the folks, you guys there in New Orleans. Bad news for them here. No matter what happens, though, it looks like we are going to be on the eastern side of this hurricane, so we expect some pretty intense winds, some pretty intense hurricane situations.
Stay safe out there. And Meg Ferris joins us now. Where have you been, Meg?
Back in out of the rain from, we went to a local high school here in Baton Rouge. The shelter had about 500 people in it, mostly from New Orleans. And what was so interesting was we talked to several people. Most people were sound asleep. We didn't want to wake them up.
That was good.
Right. But they were all first-time evacuees of a New Orleans storm because of what the mayor said. Take a listen to what they had to say.
My family heard the news and they said it was a Category 5 and the mayor, it was a mandatory move. We immediately moved out. We said we have to go.
What made you decide to come west?
I thank God made us decide to come west because they had cut it off at a certain point where we couldn't go straight into Baton Rouge, so we had to hit home exit, and this was the direction it led us to.
We got kind of scared because we kind of expected New Orleans to get hit soon, but by the mayor doing the mandatory evacuation and, you know, everybody telling us to leave, we decided to leave.
And those three ladies who we met, and Sally and Eric, many other people we met, they just drove and drove and drove and just stopped there.
And you know, Meg, it is kind of amazing that it took the mayor's call for a mandatory evacuation, because the day before, he and the governor were strongly advising people to leave and seek shelter. But not till that mandatory evacuation, according to those folks, was what sent them out. The current information has said that this will make landfall at, say, maybe 7 or 8 o'clock. But as we can see from the pictures here, that eye is very close to making landfall now. So, as we said, that advisory at 4 o'clock is going to be kind of a key one in letting us know if that storm is speeded up a little, and if it has gained or diminished any strength. All right, Shauna Sanford has been at the Baton Rouge emergency office and has some latest on the evacuations. Let's go to Shauna now.
What can you tell us? What's the latest information that you do have?
Well, right now, everyone is just in a holding pattern because it's already too late to evacuate. Hopefully everybody is in some kind of a safe haven, and we're just waiting till the storm hits so that we can make the next move.
And I know that you have people everywhere. Tell us about where you have people and what they're waiting to do once they all clear.
Well, we have strategic locations. We have National Guard armories that are all throughout the state. But in this region, they're preparing and staging their equipment and ready to go with their trucks and the equipment. Like the engineers have all of their earth-moving equipment that they may need if they're needed in New Orleans, and we're just staging everything, getting ready to go in case they're needed.
And we're looking at the Command Central area right now that where they are gathered in Baton Rouge monitoring the events as they happen. There are a number of public officials who are there as well, politicians who are going to be back at the Command Central later this morning.
Sally, let's go over the new numbers.
Okay.
The new numbers are at 28.8 north, 89.6 west. It's diminished a bit down to 150 miles an hour. It's moving north at 15 miles an hour, so it's increased a little bit in its speed of movement. The pressure is now at 915 millibars, so it's going up a
pressure
bit.
is up, and that is a good sign as well.
Those are the latest numbers, and Ben, you can put them back up again so we can get another look at them. 28.8 north, 89.6 west. If you notice, that's the same 89.6 west. That's the same position it was in terms of longitude as it was 2 hours ago when we got the last update. So it's not moving any further west, but it is moving towards the north. So the movement is due north at this point.
That's what I was talking to Carl. It did look like it was due north on that satellite.
Yes.
On that satellite
and that's
shot.
what I had told you just before you started the conversation with Carl. We had finally seen, and in the 2 o'clock update, they had put out the northerly track, the Hurricane Center, and it's sustaining that northerly track.
Now that's not good for New Orleans and a number of communities around us.
What they're saying now, the feeling now is that it's going to come onshore along the southeastern Louisiana coast in just the next couple of hours. You can see it's getting very close. Looks like between Venice and Buras maybe. Strike probabilities is now 99%. New Orleans is 74% over the next 24 hours on the strike. This is a mathematical model that the Weather Center, the Hurricane Center uses in computing where the storm might go. Gulfport now is 72%, 72 for Gulfport, 74 for New Orleans. Gives you an idea. Their feeling now is that Katrina will move onshore over the southeastern Louisiana coast just east of Grand Isle this morning and reach the Louisiana-Mississippi border this afternoon.
I'm joined here by Senator Mary Landrieu. And Senator Landrieu, you were just in on that conference call with parish presidents from around the state. What are you hearing from them?
Well, this is a very, very serious storm, and we're picking up damage, high winds, a lot of water. The governor of Louisiana and the governor of Mississippi had unprecedented cooperation trying to evacuate people. The focus has always been on trying to save lives, and we're still focused on that today. This is a very serious, very tough storm, but the Operations Center has been up for several days. Everyone is here, state police, National Guard. All federal assets, all state assets, and all local assets are being deployed. But Stephanie, as you know, as a hurricane moves through, there's a safety issue for emergency personnel, cannot go out until a certain point.
And particularly Lower Plaquemine and Lower St. Bernard, have we heard anything from them about how they're faring?
It's not good. There's a lot of high wind, of course. The command center's taken the brunt as well. But again, the emergency personnel understand their jobs. They're going to do the best they can to help keep people safe.
And it sounds like a really serious situation there at Chalmette High School and also at St. Bernard High School. The roof had blown off. There were broken
Chalmette
windows.
High, the roof
had blown off, and there were about 330 people that they were housing in these complexes, some of them with special needs, because he actually said on the phone before he had to go, because the situation was getting worse there, that there were a number of people with special needs that they had trouble getting out, and they were not able to get out because the ambulance system was not coordinated appropriately, and they were able to get some of them out, but not all of them out. So it sounded like a pretty frightening situation.
We moved a crew up here,
right,
and we're broadcasting from your school. So first of all, thank you so much for welcoming us, and
able to stay on the air.
A lot of students, a lot of employees here at LSU helping us out as well.
Pleased to have you. What have you heard from officials so far, and what kind of information are you getting?
Well, it's working about as well as can be expected given the circumstances, but a lot of preparation time went into this. And certainly, I think the efforts over the course of the last few years of really thinking through all the emergency services efforts and all the management that needs to be done in order to prepare for something like this is now paying off. And we're seeing that today, I think, in the form of the kind of efforts here around Baton Rouge and around the LSU campus to work through this challenge.
Let me ask you,
if I may break in here for a second.
Okay,
we've got a flash flood warning for New Orleans, so if you guys can get to me. This has just come out from the National Weather Service. A flash flood warning for Orleans Parish. Stay right there, Chancellor. We'll come right back to you. This is a flash flood warning for Orleans Parish.
A flash flood warning for Orleans Parish.
What has happened is a levee breach has occurred along the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street. Now, Tennessee Street's in the Holy Cross area. It parallels the Industrial Canal a couple of miles away, a couple of blocks away from the Industrial Canal. Because of this levee breach, 3 to 8 feet of water is expected in that area. That water will be pouring into the Chalmette side of the Industrial Canal, where Holy Cross High School is. So the Weather Service is warning, do not drive your vehicle into areas where the water covers the roadway. Water depth may be too great to allow your car to cross, and vehicles caught in rising water should be abandoned quickly. It only takes 2 feet of water to make a vehicle start floating, and then you're in great danger. So there is a flash flood warning. Once again, a levee breach has occurred along the Industrial Canal at Tennessee Street. 3 to 8 feet of water is expected, and this is on the Araby side, the Chalmette side.
That's
Chalmette side,
That's
okay.
St. Bernard. I mean, that's right by
That's
St. Bernard Parish, right?
This is the same area that flooded during Betsy's
Exactly.
area.
I don't mean to stop you short, but I think we have the audio situation figured out with the Kathleen and Governor Blanco press conference, so let's go back.
Too many people stayed as far as we're concerned, and the ones who are in shelters, by and large, are secure. There are some shelters in the low-lying areas that are having some structural problems, but nothing that we know of yet has impaired the lives of large groups of people.
You see those red areas of red and yellow, and those are right along the edge of the eye wall, so those could well be the most severe impact winds that we see from this storm in the New Orleans area occurring right now.
According to CBS News correspondent Lee Cowan, who, from what I understand, is in the Superdome, 2 holes opened in the roof of the dome as Katrina approached the city. The holes are about around the 20-yard line. Of course, the Superdome is used for the Saints. They're rectangular. They're about 10 feet by 3 feet, and Cowan apparently saw pieces of the roof flapping in the wind, and water is leaking in several other spots throughout the building. Of course, we'll continue to update you on the situation as more information becomes available on the situation at the Superdome. But right now, we're going to go to Lee Zurich, who is on the phone with Mike Haas, who is in New Orleans at the Hyatt Regency. Lee?
And Jen, Mike is still in the Hyatt. Mike, can you hear me and maybe tell us about the situation in New Orleans and the CBD right now?
Yeah, Lee, I can hear you fine. We are in the back now in the evacuation room, so to speak, in the Hyatt Regency ballroom. You know, it's been raining with the squalls on and off through the night. Right about daybreak, here at the hotel, they started having problems with the windows shattering here at this hotel. Roughly 40 to 50 windows had shattered in rooms, some along the Poydras Street side, some along the Loyola Street side. And so a great portion of the morning has been trying to keep people out of the center of the hotel because if you've ever been in the Hyatt Regency, there's a big atrium and there's glass. Every 10 minutes you'll hear this, and it's just pieces of shard glass that are falling from floors above. The storm has been consistent. It is, for lack of a better description, if you're a skier, it's like a whiteout out there. We've got an excellent vantage point in that when you leave the Hyatt and you walk towards Poydras Street, you are blocked by 2 huge buildings, but yet you can stay within the safety of those buildings, but yet also give you a sense of the power of this storm. Brad Panovich and Carl Arredondo said, and this is, I'm not even sure what time it is now, but this was about 7:30 that we were reaching winds of 100 miles an hour in the CBD. On the street, it's just debris. I mean, stop signs, lamp posts, the CNG tower. If you're standing out on Poydras looking up at the CNG tower and over towards the Superdome, window panes just falling out.
We're approaching 9 o'clock here on Monday morning, and we're talking with Mike Haas, who's at the Hyatt Regency in New Orleans, waiting out the storm with members of our crew, along with New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin and also Police Chief Eddie Compass. And Mike, you've talked about the wind and the wind damage, what they've done to windows there and things like that. Do you have any idea about water so far, and if there's any flooding in any areas or anything like that?
Just the street flooding that you would see from a storm of this size. I mean, not. We have some unconfirmed reports of some problems along the levee at the Industrial Canal.
Phone with Jonathan Betts, who apparently is at the New Orleans Center, which is right across from the Superdome. Lee?
Yeah, and John is right in the New Orleans Center. And actually, Jonathan, you have a pretty good view of what's going on with the roof at the Superdome, correct?
Yeah, we actually do. We're on the 3rd floor of the New Orleans Center, looking out, have a great view of the Superdome from the outside, and we can see huge layers of the roof have just been peeled off. It looks like part of the roof, at least the inner layers of the roof, are still intact, but the outer layers are just flapping in the breeze, hanging off the side of the Superdome.
We're finally actually getting to see some moving pictures of New Orleans. Mike Hoss sent this back, and you can see the wind blowing downtown. This is downtown New Orleans. Obviously, Mike Hoss and the rest of the Channel 4 staff still down there are at the Hyatt Hotel, so they are near the Hyatt as you see the wind, and you can see
that's the post office building.
That's the post office building.
Oh, and
didn't we hear?
water.
There's the water. And didn't we hear about the roof at the post office?
Yeah, we'd heard the roof.
Karen Swenson said that
Had blown off, from what I understand, or a number of
let's,
windows.
Let's hear Mike. I think Mike's going to talk to someone in a second.
We can hear him.
All right, I think we're going to have an interview with someone in a second.
Just as soon as we see him on the camera.
Yeah, just as soon as we see him. But you
and
can
there's
see
all the debris,
blowing in the wind.
and windows blown out.
Now you look up there. That looks like Loyola, or actually a cross street between or alley between the buildings. Look at the wind blowing through there. Look at the spray being blown up by that wind.
Look at that office building.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the Hyatt.
That is part of that's probably one of the hotel rooms. You know, they talked to that is the
and
Hyatt.
you can see the pockmark
the windows.
Missing windows.
Wow. I think Karen said there was not a floor without windows that had been blown
Look
out.
at that,
and people's
All right,
belongings.
Here's the gentleman. So
walking.
I'm assuming this is the person that we're not yet. Okay, I'm told not yet, but we know there's going to be an interview with someone down there, but we'll keep playing some of these.
And he seemed to be walking so calmly through the streets.
I don't know how.
Can't imagine.
But look at that
another
wind,
shot
Bill
of,
and Jen.
Yeah, it looks like just a foot or two of water, not too much water, but definitely like a stream, and people trying to walk through this.
I think this
between these buildings.
And I think this gentleman walking up is eventually going to be the person that Mike talks to. But watch him. Just look at the water he's walking through and the wind. And yeah, I'm kind of anxious to hear this interview because you kind of wonder why this guy's walking through here. And look at.
And that's dangerous, so you don't know whether they're nails, broken bottles.
And I'm wondering if he was employed at one of the hotels, or what was the reasoning for him to be out.
Why do you need to leave? That's where look at the Hyatt. That's right at the Jonathan Betts was saying Girard Street. That pretty much tells us about the flooding. But here's Mike's interview.
Keep hugging the wall. You were at your house? Yeah. This not too bad? Yeah, the roof blew off. Everybody okay? Well, they got some people hanging in there. Where do you live? 2821 Jackson Avenue. The roof blew off Jackson Avenue, huh? Yeah. Anybody hurt? Not that I know of. I don't know. What's your name? Melvin James. Melvin James?
Yeah. There's the dome.
Yeah.
And you had some amazing pictures of that you were describing earlier.
And look at that. Jonathan Betts was talking about the pieces hanging off, and you really see it right there. And
the brunt of the storm is now moving towards the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and we have some videotape from the Mississippi Gulf Coast we can take a look at right now. Look at these. Now these pictures of the wind speed beginning to pick up. That's significant wind. You know how wide that beach is. Look at the surface just pouring across there. And that looks like it's part of a dock that has collapsed already. And this is far before the worst impact of the storm.
And the water appears to be approaching that road there.
That would probably be Highway 90.
Right.
The beachfront road.
Right.
And it's really at
debris
two
in
levels.
The water.
The eastbound lanes are at a lower level than the westbound lanes.
And I think we're ready to go back to Mike Ross and hear from him and the situation on the North Shore.
Well, for St. Tammany Parish, the wait for Hurricane Katrina is over. Overnight, the winds came up. We have torrential rain now all across the parish. Parish officials tell me that on the lakefront, they now have sustained winds at around 6 a.m. of 60 miles an hour, with wind gusts up to 70 and 75. And they say the situation is only going to get worse. All across St. Tammany, they now have reports of downed trees, power outages. No reports of any significant structural damage or injuries at this point, but parish continue to monitor the situation from the Emergency Operations Center in Covington, which is where we're based at this point, and they're advising everyone, if you have not evacuated yet, to stay inside, hunker down, and try to ride this out.
St. Tammany Parish is starting to feel the storm,
the worst of it.
And after it moved through St. Bernard Parish, which, as we know so far, received the worst part of the storm so far.
Right.
Let's go to the Office of Emergency Preparedness here in Baton Rouge. Stephanie Regal. I think, Steph, you have an update on St. Bernard Parish?
I'm joined by State Senator Walter Boisseau, who represents St. Bernard Parish, Plaquemine Parish, as well as parts of Orleans and St. Tammany. But Senator Boisseau, thanks for being with us. And you've had some disturbing reports about damage, particularly in St. Bernard.
Yeah, right now, basically what we see is that on the north side of Judge Perez, we have water exceeding 10 feet. We have water in the heart of Chalmette. People in the two-story houses with 2.5 feet of water in the house at this time.
No kidding. What neighborhoods are you talking about specifically?
In the middle of Chalmette, a street called Corrine, and which is basically the heart. It's that, once again, it's that you got the 12.5 feet, the sheriff substation on Parish Road. They got 4.5 feet of water on the second floor. And I guess what concerns us the most is that we know that we feel very confident at least 80% of the residents did evacuate, but we have reports that there are people who in single-story houses have gone into their attics, and it's just whether or not we're going to be able to get to them before the water tops the roofs.
Can we hear Mike and Karen? Can y'all hear us?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we hear you. Finally.
And we are so happy to see
Welcome
you guys.
back.
You look great.
Is that what office? Where are you? You're in the building? Are you in our building?
Well, we are back in our WWL Rampart studios here in the French Quarter. We are still having some communication difficulties, as you probably can tell, and so we are very close to being back in our studios, but we have been feeding you the videotape that you've been seeing from some of the early ramifications from Hurricane Katrina, and hopefully we'll be back up 100% within minutes.
That's right. And right now we are reporting to you from one of the newsroom offices. And as Mike said, we will bring you continuous coverage from our studios just as soon as we can fix a few communication problems.
We're back here. We were here all night, Sally Ann. And you know, when we left this set, the hope was that it wouldn't be as bad as they had feared. They say it wasn't as bad as we feared, but it was bad.
We're looking at the Hyatt Regency right now, and we haven't. You can see the wind blowing through those windows that have been blown out.
And you know, we had thought this was going to be.
Look at that.
Yeah, we thought this was going to be a devastating storm like this. And you know, for a while, when it said it was jogging a bit east, and we said the eye wall wasn't going to come into Orleans Parish, or at least down to the CBD, we thought maybe we'd escape some of this. But you can see from the devastation on that, almost every window in that building, at least that side of the building, gone.
And damage reported as well on another major thoroughfare, Canal Street. But fortunately, no one was injured at the Hyatt Regency. If we look at all of this, because they had moved all of the guests out of their rooms and into a central ballroom on the 3rd floor. And thank God they did.
We're going to try and toss it back to our colleagues in New Orleans.
Yeah, we left here last night, Dennis Waltering and I, at about 10:45 when the conditions got to a point where we thought, well, let's head on over to some safer areas, and tossed it up to Baton Rouge, where they did a phenomenal job of handling the coverage in a very difficult situation from 60 miles away. We've got a long rundown of some of the video that we do have in-house. We're going to begin Uptown. Producer Brent Lede was Uptown, also spoke with Mayor Nagin and Chief of Police Eddie Compass. How hard hit was the Uptown area? You know it well.
There were a lot of trees down. Power lines were down, rooftops damaged, awnings in the street. Many streets are impassable. What you're looking at now is the Bridge House, which is near Britannia. Wow. And you'll see where that's usually the parking lot where some of the used cars are sold. That wall has collapsed. We drove by that. Photographer Brian Lucas and I took the ride uptown. The first attempt uptown was halted because we caught a flat. There's so much debris on the street that it's very difficult to drive on. We were looking at another collapsed building. This is a redevelopment site, and you may notice some of the power lines that are down. This is near Magazine, I believe, Jackson. A roof collapsed, and bricks were found that in many areas. Uptown collapsed. This is a church. Another church uptown, the stained glass window blown out. Many of the buildings uptown that did have damage and walls collapsed, bricks were spilled into the street, making the streets impassable. It took us a long time, I say maybe an hour, to go from downtown to Napoleon and back.
Again, we've got crews all over the area, and
Tom Trung has been out at St. Bernard Avenue. We showed some video just a second ago. Some of the earlier stuff, it was from Elysian Fields, water over the car tops. We were told water up to near the eaves of some houses. Where were you and how was it?
Well, we were trying to get to Kenner, and if you guys have traveled the interstate, or if anybody's been trying to travel the interstate today, the ramps are just inundated with water going east and west, so it's very difficult for us to get on there. So while we were trying to go to Kenner, we got turned around, and we eventually ended up right above St. Bernard Avenue. Take a look at some of the video that we saw. As I told you before, we were trying to get to Kenner, and we just basically rolled up onto this scene, people trying to get to and from Claiborne to St. Bernard Avenue, trying to cross what seems to be like a river now on the street. As you can see, one person just traveling right across the street now, several people right up to their chest, water levels right up to their chest. And one of the other situations that we're seeing now, and several people had come up to us and said, there are looters now, and this is a situation that the NOPD are trying to get a grasp on, but since we're just hours now, just basically seeing the initial impact of the storm, they have a myriad of concerns, and this is the situation with looters that nobody really knows where to go and where to really, because communication for the police right now are limited as well. So with the situation of looters, we spoke with one man who said he's been seeing looters all day, and Councilman Thomas again commented on that situation, and here's what they had to say.
People got to eat. They're going to do whatever they got to do to survive. In this crooked-ass city, they don't really give a damn if you live or die here.
There are people looting all over the city, which is really crazy, because we saw some people coming, running with brand new boxes and stuff that they got out of a store. I don't know where the insanity and the madness is coming from.
And I believe we have tape, unfortunately, of another looting incident on Earhart, if I'm right about that.
Yeah, Coleman Supply.
This was unbelievable. This story, it just blows your mind when you hear what happened. 2 people were apparently looting the place, and one of the looters shot the other looter, and they wound up having to take the man to Charity Hospital. I don't know if that was the man to whom the mayor was referring when he said that we had somebody shot multiple times and couldn't treat him because of the water situation, and they were transporting him. However, this man was shot several times.
But again, and you touched on it, Tom, look at the number of police cars who are at this shooting on Earhart. I mean, there have been 4 or 5 where those guys could have been out. We got people that need help in the lower 9th Ward. We got people that need help in Eastover. We got people help in Gentilly. And because we got 4 police officers and doing their job, we got a shooting. But I mean, it's hard to see. Jonathan Betts joins us now. Jonathan, you were in the lower 9th Ward. We've talked about St. Bernard, and these are the areas that have been hit hardest by Katrina. What did you see?
Saw a lot of water. It is absolutely terrifying to look at. As you drive over the St. Cloud Avenue Bridge over the Intercoastal Canal, all you see is water, pretty much, and the tops of roofs. And what you hear are people screaming for help.
Oh, no.
This is video we took just within the last couple of hours. Police just began the rescue operation of going through these homes, trying to pull people out. As you can see, they're using boats, going through these neighborhoods, rescuing people who are trapped up in their attics. Some are trapped up in their roofs. Many people stayed behind to try to ride out this storm, and as the water rose, they were desperate to try to find higher ground. So we talked with many people who broke up through their ceiling to get into their attic, and then in some cases had to break through their roof to get onto the actual roof there, you can see that the police there are rescuing people, going basically home to home. In some cases, when the water is a little low enough, or basically the house high enough where they can break through the front door, they're breaking through the front door and going in and pulling them out. Otherwise, and further on that video, you see people who are hanging out of their roofs, hanging out of the windows on their top of their roofs. Basically, starting from closest to St. Claude Avenue Bridge, which is where they're kind of based out. You can see they're climbing up onto the roof. And this photo, to me, says so much here. You see these elderly people here who
likely had no choice
but to stay, and being helped out in a couple of minutes by their neighbors who helped them, took them in. It's him and an elderly female as well, a lady, with basically nothing on but their clothes. I mean, just the undergarments pretty much, being helped by their neighbors into the back of National Guard trucks trying to get some help.
And that is the best of the New Orleanians. That's the great side.
You were talking about looting, and I wanted to see that because there is some good stories happening out there.
Far more good stories than a few looting situations.
And here, with the police carrying this woman here who is basically too exhausted to walk or too frail to try to get into the back of these large trucks that the National Guard has brought in to shuttle these people to higher ground, to hospitals, to try to get some help. You can see there the water. It brings back a lot of memories of Hurricane Betsy back in the 60s there, of people trapped in their attics, trapped on their roofs, trying to get some help. You can see the boats are coming through. Later on this tape, we'll actually see a man hanging out of his roof, the window there, asking for help. And it's a very eerie sound because we drove over there with the police. They saw it the first time, we saw it the first time together as they began the rescue operation really within the last couple of hours. The storm was still so fierce they could not get out to that area.
Katrina, Jonathan, thank you very much. Chilling video.
If we could ask anyone from the St. Bernard Parish Emergency Operations Center to give us a call so we could get some more specifics, what the problems are that you face there, what your advice is to the residents who evacuated and want to know when they can come back.
And we just showed you the railroad trestle underpass right there at I-10. We do have a rather amazing story to show you that also happened there. Our photographer, Jimmy Brown, was there with one of our other employees, Chris Merrifield. I mean, there he is. He's just shooting the trestle. And watch to the right of your screen. Bam.
Unbelievable.
Car drives in. Chris Merrifield, being the most polite human I know, told Jimmy, "Excuse me," and then ran into the water. He knew immediately that there was a problem.
And he's such a nice guy. He really is. And that man was very appreciative. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to run his comments, but he was very appreciative. And you know, our photographer said, because we were saying, how do you just, drive 55 miles an hour into a wall of water? And he said, actually, we actually didn't realize that we were going to be driving into much the same thing. He said, the term he used was mirage. He said, you're driving along, and all of a sudden you hit a wall of water. So, that poor guy, he unfortunately realized it moments too late.
And thankfully, Chris Merrifield was there. He's actually, the car is floating. He's actually pulling the car back so it doesn't get further underwater. And they tried desperately to try to open the door, and the water pressure much too strong for that. So you roll the window down, and that's how he got out.
And Tan Trung was in the St. Claude area earlier today, and we're going to show you what he saw there.
The power of Hurricane Katrina impacted thousands of people in southeastern Louisiana. Hours after landfall, a deaf woman tried to find higher ground near the bywater area of the city. And on the neutral ground, a bird tried to hang on to what seemed to be the last moments of life. Near the historic French Quarter, collapsed trees blocked the streets which for years have been the trademark of the city's tourism industry. The path of Hurricane Katrina came from St. Bernard Parish and made its way through Orleans Parish. We're here on St. Claude Avenue where water right now is inundating the city, and we're still experiencing very strong wind gusts. And here at Colton Middle School, water is now just encompassing much of the streets surrounding this area, making it impassable for many vehicles. During the night and the early morning hours, those who would or could not evacuate braced for the storm in makeshift shelters. While some prayed, slept, or waited with anxiety, the hurricane unloaded its force. With no electricity and communication capabilities, many of those who left do not know the level of damage in their hometown. Tan Trung, Channel 4, Eyewitness News.
Where are we going?
To the West Bank.
Thank you.
That's
been
I
a
know you're not
long
trying to
night.
read my handwriting, are you? Because I'm not sure I can read it at this juncture. But Manhattan Boulevard on the West Bank in Harvey. This is around I'm told around the Lowe's area, right near the Lapalco area. Again, and when you can see when we were there, the storm was still very much here. Flooding there as well.
Bad, but not perhaps as bad as we might have expected. And I think that's what Walter Maestri was saying. You know, bad, but some of these areas around that Lapalco area, closer to the Harvey Canal, you would expect to flood, and instead it hasn't. The areas hit hardest: Lincolnshire, Westminster, and then over in Metairie, David Drive.
And again,
there you go. This is the first time we're looking at the tape.
Wow, and more wind damage than water here. But the wind damage fairly significant.
Sure, taking off entire walls of buildings, just like it did over in the Elmwood area. That's I don't want to say it's the Frost Up. I can't remember the name of that restaurant, but that is a popular little place over there. And then the street flooding here.
Trees down.
It's bad. It's not like you see at the in the lower 9th Ward where the cars are underwater, but certainly it's got some damage over there, and that is in West Wego.
And this is Claiborne Avenue, and this is certainly a great amount of water here. And that's the Circle Food store that many people are familiar with, right on Claiborne. And that's about what you have to do today. Get some floaties and some, well, not your fire extinguishers. We certainly don't want to condone that, but you know, you're kind of in the water. It's about all you can do at this point.
Right. I think he was holding onto a life preserver. Actually, a very smart move as he wades through chest-high waters.
So that water's going to take a while to get out. That's extensive. That's not over a couple of streets. That's not some drainage canals that have overflowed.
What we need now is a chance to dry out, and hopefully that is exactly what Carl Arredondo is going to tell us now. Carl?
Well, Mike and Karen, yeah, the forecast is brighter. Unfortunately, we have to do a lot of cleaning up around the area because of Katrina, but the storm is moving away from the area. Take a look first at 3D pinpoint Doppler. Still some rain left over in parts of the area. You have to go up towards Washington Parish, around Mount Herman, Warrenton, Clifton, Pine, Sheridan, Varnado, and up towards Angie. You can see that continue to rotate around the center of circulation that is moving away from our area. So we're going to get a chance to dry out after all the rain we've had around the region. I showed you this a couple of times before. The forecast track when we left about 10 o'clock on Sunday night, the actual path, we did see a slight shift to the right, and that was with the storm moving into Barataria Bay just east of Grand Isle, across central Plaquemines Parish, a little jog to the northeast, and then it resumed that northerly course that it was taking towards St. Tammany Parish, Slidell, and over towards Hancock County, pretty much right around the Pearl River. And that still made a difference on who saw some eye wall action.
It's good to see you.
I haven't seen you. It's been yesterday afternoon.
Glad to know you're
when we
well.
saw you last.
I know. It seemed like the West Bank and the East Bank are so far apart just because of the lack of communications that we've become so dependent on. But spent last night Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office, riding out the storm with Sheriff Harry Lee. And, you know, we woke up early this morning, and the storm obviously was still going on. And he was getting emergency calls throughout the day, like I'm sure they were in New Orleans. I mean, I don't know because I haven't been in New Orleans.
They did.
Which he simply couldn't respond to. And,
which they couldn't either.
Right. So this morning was all about constantly testing the waters, or the wind as the result actually is, see when they could get out there and start helping some people.
Rode out in the hill last night? Anybody else that you know of?
As soon as physically possible, deputies from the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office responded to an emergency call that came hours earlier. An apartment complex almost leveled, and many unsure if the danger had passed.
Y'all try to contain yourself in here not to get on the street, okay? In case they got any live wires and stuff like that. Yeah.
Somehow, no one is buried in the rubble. Amazing, since this complex saw several of its residents ride out the storm and its destructive power.
We were pretty much all contained inside, you know, with family and everything. It wasn't focusing on outside, you know. Pretty much trying to keep ourselves safe and everything, you know.
Were you frightened?
At some given point, but then, you know, we got a little more comfortable as time went on, you know. So we it came out pretty good, you know. It could have been worse, but we just glad it came out to be what it was.
For this part of the West Bank near the river, the damage is everywhere, but it's not entirely overwhelming. And while some parts are flooded, it appears that the wind was Katrina's weapon of choice in this area. Further down the parish, however, officials fear what they will find when they can finally make it to Grand Isle.
We know there was seven souls down there. We're trying to get in touch with those people to see what we have. That's the one area of concern because we just can't get in there right now.
From my standpoint and our company's standpoint, again, the worst storm damage we've ever seen.
Wow.
A million people between Mississippi and Louisiana without power. Thank you.
Mr. Packer, thanks for joining us.
Best
We
of
appreciate
luck.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
I'll be back if you need me.
Yes, sir. We always
We will be calling you back.
Yes, thank you. So lots of work to be done. And we're going to go here to something we've been talking about all day, and that's some information we hope about the North Shore and St. Tammany Parish. Mike Ross covered the evacuation and the contraflow, and we've been kind of wondering. I know he's been out there working, but we were getting a little concerned. We hadn't heard from him, and that's the first thing you want to do is hear from your friends and coworkers.
And Mike Ross has this report on what's happening on the North Shore.
A large boat sits aground in the westbound lanes of the I-10 in Slidell, an amazing sign of how far the storm surge has spread. The hurricane pushed Lake Pontchartrain deep into Slidell. The storm surge put Old Spanish Trail under waist-deep water, and some residents chose to wait out.
Couldn't afford to leave, and I didn't think it'd be this bad. When I left, my house was shifting on the cinder blocks, truck and motorcycle underwater. Lost everything.
Rhonda Scott waded to the I-10 from her home near Pontchartrain Boulevard. She was determined to carry her 2 cats to safety.
Well, I was like everybody else, May 5th storm came along, it was like this close to coming in my house. Figured I was at the highest point. But then the water started coming underneath the walls, and it started coming up really fast, and I almost didn't get out the door. I would have had to try to get in the attic. Didn't have a ladder, so I said I'll walk it out.
Keeping people out of this area has to be priority number one for the Louisiana State Police.
Exactly. We've got a lot of people who left the area who are very anxious to get back and at least be able to assess the situation, and we cannot stress the point enough that right now is definitely not the time for them to try to come back. I-10 is not open to vehicular traffic. If people get on and try to come in, they're going to be turned off the interstates. And as I said earlier, and I want to reiterate to anybody that might be watching the news program now, even though I-10 is passable in most of the places throughout the area until you get into Orleans, the streets that feed into I-10, the city streets and the LA highways, are not passable due to high amounts of water.
There will be many people who tonight are spending the night sitting on their roof, sitting in their attic, yelling, trying to get somebody to come help them out. And here's a look at some of the things that we found in that 9th Ward, 7th Ward, 8th Ward area up into Treme earlier this afternoon.
They're sending a boat! A boat!
Words of assurance from a rescuer that help will come eventually. A man who used a water cooler as a float finds a truck to stand on. Nearby, another man has also climbed out of the water. And in the distance, a faint shout and a hand visible in a broken window are the only signs that more people are trapped in chest-deep water. From Orleans Avenue in the Treme neighborhood to the Interstate 10 high-rise almost 4 miles away, neighborhoods on both sides of the highway are swallowed by flooding from Hurricane Katrina.
We got up this morning, and we just went and rained, and all of a sudden the water just started rising.
Daniel and Glenn LaCour say there was no room for them in the car when their wives and children drove away. They climbed into their attic and kicked out a wall panel to get daylight and to shout for help.
In a matter of 20 minutes, it was up this high.
Interstate exit ramps turned into boat launches as a massive search and rescue begins in a city that's underwater.
Very dark right now. The rescue effort is continuing because there are estimates that there are hundreds of people, literally hundreds and hundreds of people, I've been told, who are still trapped on their roofs, on their attics, out in lower 9th Ward here in St. Bernard, desperate to try to get to dry land. A lot of them are standing behind me here. You can see this group here. Right behind us here, about 20 feet away, is the water. into lower Ninth Ward here. One other couple we wanted to speak to also, another victims out here is Muriel Clark and Clyde Shanlin here. Tell me kind of your story first off. What did you see last night? What happened?
Last night it was like about a little after 12. We went to the door to check the water, check outside. We went back inside, and in a moment's time, we just said we're gonna walk to the door. The water was rising, but it is a God.
It rose real fast, and that's
It
what we'd
went
like to say.
fast.
First of all, thank God for being alive. That's the most important
That's the
thing.
most important.
We're thankful for the blessings. You know, we really just happy to be alive, man.
Mike Haas, along with Dennis Woltering, we are now joined by the mayor of New Orleans, Ray Nagin. We want to get right to him because he's had a briefing of note, and we've been talking to you all day. Bring us up to speed with news that is not necessarily very good.
Well, you know, my heart is heavy tonight. I don't have any good news to really share, other than at some point in time, the federal government will be coming in here en masse. But you know, the city of New Orleans is in a state of devastation. We probably have 80% of our city underwater. With some sections of our city, the water is as deep as 20 feet. We still have many of our residents on roofs, still waiting to be repaired. We have firemen, policemen, just about everybody that you can think of out there trying to rescue individuals from their roofs. We have an incredible amount of water in the city. Both airports are underwater. We have the twin spans in New Orleans East have been totally destroyed. Wow. They're gone. We have 3 huge boats that have been run aground. We have an oil tanker that is also run aground that is leaking oil. We have a serious levee break at the 17th Street Canal, where the 17th Street Canal is a place where both Orleans and Jefferson Parish both drain their cities. And there's a serious leak, and it's causing waters to continue to rise in certain sections of the city. We have houses that have been literally picked up off of their foundations and moved. The yacht club on the lake has burned and has burned totally and is destroyed. And I must tell people that are driving around, if you drive on a high-rise, we're not sure of the structural soundness of the high-rise because it appears as though a barge has hit one of the main structures of the high-rise. This is a briefing that I got from a gentleman named Marty who's with FEMA. He's the under-director of FEMA, and the FEMA secretary is coming in town tomorrow along with our senators and congressional leaders to do a flyover. All of Slidell, I understand, is underwater. Most of Metairie is underwater. And the list goes on and on. We have gas leaks that have sprout up throughout the city, and even when they're underwater, they have, you will see water and a flame shooting out of the water. It's pretty much, you know, not a pretty picture. On the somewhat good news side, we still have lots of people that have survived this, that stayed here. The Uptown areas seem to be pretty dry. The French Quarter and the CBD are relatively dry. But we also have buildings that you will have, they look like a bazooka was shot through them. There really is no clear path in and out of the city, whether you're going to the east or whether you're going to the west. The I-10 West Pontchartrain Expressway is still full of water, and we're trying to figure out a way to deal with that. We do have the National Guard who's here, and they're working with us, and they're trying to provide us with supplies and resources, and we put together a list from FEMA that basically is our wish list of things that we want, and we're going to continue to work. I wish I had some better news, but to the citizens that are out there around the country, and you're worried about New Orleans, and you're worried about trying to come back here, it's not the time for you to come back. There's basically no water in the city, and I shouldn't say no water. The water system has been pretty much contaminated, with the exception of the CBD area, as well as Algiers is on separate issues. There's no electricity. I'm sure Entergy has already reported. They expect electricity to be out for 4 to 6 weeks at a minimum, and the list goes on and on. So that's pretty much my report. You know, we just need to start the process of rebuilding this city. We have a full commitment from the federal government, from the president on up, that they're going to bring whatever resources down here to see if we can get this this city rebuilt.
You mentioned earlier that what you're doing right now is rescuing people.
Yes.
Any sense of any idea of what the human toll is from this hurricane?
We really don't have a sense for how many lives have been lost, other than from the standpoint that we're concentrating on the living. But we have been getting many reports that of bodies floating in the water, you know, and people obviously have been trapped inside their homes. You know, so we're going to have a significant amount of loss of life in the city.
And where are those reports coming from?
Everyone, the firemen, the policemen, the National Guard.
I mean, geographically in the city?
From everywhere. Okay. Mostly in New Orleans East and in the lower Ninth Ward is the primary areas where we get most of those reports. But even in Mid-City and Gentilly, there are significant amounts of water just about everywhere, where a lot of the pictures, all you see is the roofs of the buildings.
Yeah, this is some of the rescue efforts. This is, I mean, they've been going on, you know, as soon as you guys could get out there, the rescue efforts began, and it's
well, as soon as the winds got down below 50 miles an hour, we sent our troops out. We had boats on standby. You know, thank God, you know, God was working with us, because we already had these boats pre-staged, so we were able to kind of get them out there. We also have Wildlife and Fisheries that is sending down another, I think, 43 boats, if I'm not mistaken. We will probably have 60 boats in the water between now and tomorrow morning. So we're really working hard, and we're saving children, we're saving elderly people. Some of our police officers and firemen would not wait for the boats. They could hear people screaming out to them, and they dove in the water and risked their lives to try and save some people.
I talked to a firefighter, actually, who said that they were hearing people screaming from the attics. And I understand a lot of the firefighters, and maybe policemen as well, are using their own boats.
They are. We're commandeering boats as much as we can. They have the power to do that. They tell me right now that they're still hearing people crying out for help. People are using guns to shoot in the air to be identified. They're using flares, and it's really kind of a surreal kind of situation. It's almost like a nightmare that I hope we wake up from.
This nightmare began last night, not far from certainly where you and we were all staying last night at the Hyatt Hotel. You know, the aerial pictures. I don't know if you've had a chance to see any of them. As you fly over, have you seen any of this?
I've seen some still shots, but I haven't seen any aerial video.
Well, obviously the eastern side. I mean, that is the eastern side of that building.
I've seen that. The devastation is pretty amazing, but it's really kind of scattered shot in a way, because you'll go from the Hyatt building, and then you'll go on Canal Street, and everything looks pretty good. Then you go in the French Quarter, and things look relatively good. And then you go drive a few blocks away in the Treme area, and you see just devastation, and you see water. And then don't try and go east. It's just unbelievable.
Mayor, earlier you were talking about 3 pumps were still out. That was around, I guess, 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. What's the situation on that? And that was in the 9th Ward, I
It's
believe.
in the 9th Ward primarily, and also there's Pump Station 7 on Marconi Drive. It's my understanding they've identified the problems, and the Sewage and Water Board is in the process of fixing those problems. So we should have those pumps back online. But the real crux of the issue is the 7 17th Street Canal. Basically, the powerful waters that came up blew a hole in the levee, a block, almost 2 blocks long, and this is a concrete levee.
We're talking right there at Old Hammond Highway?
Yes, sir.
Where they put sandbags in. They were actually flood-proofing the bridge, if I'm not mistaken, in the process of it. But that's where you're talking about?
Yes, the water just absolutely overwhelmed that levee system. As in the Florida, in the 9th Ward, the industrial canal, obviously the waters from the lakes overwhelmed our levee systems, and that's when we had the breaches. And the 17th Street Canal right now is still flowing with water into the city and into Metairie, because there's so much water pushing from Metairie and so much water pushing from the city of New Orleans that it has to be relieved. And what's happening is that we are working against ourselves, because that water is coming in, we're pumping it back out, it's going back in the 17th Street Canal, and it's just a circular function.
So we're not able to get rid of this water in that area, and in the 9th Ward, is that still a problem, getting rid of the water?
Yeah, the 9th Ward is still a huge problem, and we were listening on a conference call. I was listening on a conference call earlier today with the governor and some representatives from St. Bernard, and St. Bernard sounds like it's even in worse shape. They said it was total. This is Nita Huddleston was on the call, and she said there was total devastation in St. Bernard.
That's what we had heard. The Associated Press is reporting 40,000 homes flooded in St. Bernard alone, and I don't know how many homes they have in the parish, but I bet that's a significant number.
I can believe it, but we're saying, you know, the FEMA guy here is saying that 80% of the city of New Orleans is underwater, and a significant portion of Metairie and Kenner is just everything north of I-10 is definitely underwater.
Mayor, how does the community get back to work? I mean, so much of what we do depends on sort of the normal routine that we count on, that we take for granted. You know, yes. Electricity, water, clean water, all that stuff, and no flooded streets, no trees down, none of that stuff. How do you get back to work?
Well, you know, I think it's going to be difficult, and it's going to take some time. I spent most of my day trying to figure out the best recovery plan that we could put together. And we were very concerned earlier today about Charity Hospital. They were threatening to shut Charity Hospital down. I drove by there, and a young man was taken to Charity Hospital. Unfortunately, he had been shot. I don't know if it was by accident or whatever, but Charity Hospital could not treat him because they didn't have any power, and they weren't able to treat this young man. And they were saying that, and they had water everywhere, and they had moved all the patients in the center. And it
windows
really
were blown out of there, so that
windows were blown out. So they asked us for a couple of things. So we went back and analyzed what could we do with Charity Hospital. Their backup power system wasn't working. We sent some people over there. We got it working. They need some other things. Then the Superdome was another issue. We've got 20,000 people in the Superdome that are getting very restless. The Superdome is hot. The people have food and water, but they have no input psychologically. They don't know what's happening outside. And we're trying to make the adjustments to feed them information, and we let them come outside the Superdome so they could get some fresh air, and it relieved a lot of pressure. Then we talked about the rescue portion of what we needed to do, and we analyzed all the boats that we had and how we were going to get that done, and how we would transfer people from the water to the ground. And then we decided that the Superdome was going to be our triage area for people coming out of there. So we have a back and forth thing going on with that. Then, unfortunately, we also talked about how we were going to set up a temporary morgue. Because right now, the bodies are just kind of there, and the police and the fire and everyone else is focused on living. But at some point in time, we're going to have to turn our attention to these dead bodies that are in the water so that we can make sure that disease doesn't set in our city in a major way. So we've got the National Guard that has the expertise to set up temporary morgues in certain key areas around the city. And then finally, we started talking about the street clearing. Let's say we could drain all the water out of the city. There's so much debris. There's so many trees that are down. There's so much out there that how do we clean that up? And we put together a list of all the equipment that we would need with the specifications, and we're going to deliver that list to FEMA tomorrow, as well as with some lines of credit so we can keep this city operational. We talked about communications, landfill issues, how we would deal with EMS and fire, and then how we could get some standby generators to power City Hall so that we have a place where we could run government. So it was pretty heady stuff.
What can people, yeah, I mean, that's
pretty overwhelming.
That is overwhelming. What can people do to help? I think there are, I mean, do you need more boats? Do you need people sandbagging at the 17th Street Canal? Because if not, this circuitous circle route is going to continue. I mean,
we're going to need everything. We're going to need more boats. We're going to need more people. At some point in time, we're going to need food. The hotels are running out of diesel fuel, so we've made a request to FEMA and the federal officials to get more diesel fuel to us because that's what's sustaining a lot of hotels. We need volunteers. There was a gentleman who came from Texas. He drove here, stopped by the edge of the water and just started saving people, commandeered a boat and just started helping. And we're going to need that. We're going to need everything.